And there's so many CEOs who you ask them, they're like, oh, I don't understand any of that stuff. That's why I have this team over there. It's like, really? This is your company's most valuable asset and you're outsourcing the leadership of it? No.
If you own all of your information and data, then you have more control and more say about how it gets used and what gets shared.
Data is incredibly simple. It's strings, dates, and numbers. That's all it is. There's strings, those are the labels, those are the descriptions, those are the names, there's dates, when it happened, when it started, when it ended, and there's numbers. How much money did you make, how much money did you lose, how much did it cost? That's it.
Welcome to the Friday Habit with Mark Labriola and Benjamin Manley. The Friday Habit is for small business owners, freelancers, and creatives who are ready to take their business to the next level. Join us as we discover how to apply the strategies we learn to grow our businesses, make more money, and live every day like it's Friday. As always, we're living every day like it's Friday. And today we got a great guest on our podcast because we're going to be talking about data today and the world of data. So I'm happy to have Paul Graves on the episode, and or Graves.
Gravy. Just
Gravy.
like biscuits and gravy.
That's right. Data coach Gravy. I'm sure that's why you always have to put that there. But hey, we got Paul Gravy on the podcast, and there's more of Graeve than gravy, all right? He's the founder and CEO of the Data Group. With nearly 2 decades of experience, Paul is on a mission to help businesses unlock the full potential of their data to drive growth and success. And so he's going to share his insights on change and how to think about data in your business. So, Paul, welcome to the Friday Habit.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, what got you into data?
Well, it was really an accident. It was not my intention. My dad was a farm boy from Iowa, and he was determined to teach his only son hard work and character. And so I never had a spring break or a summer break or a Christmas break. He always got me what he liked to call character building opportunities, which are jobs that really sucked.
Yeah.
And it was during college when I begged him and pleaded for him to finally get me some sort of white collar job that didn't suck so much. And so a construction company hired me just because my dad was a real estate developer, and they thought, they get more business out of him. So the first day I finished a bunch of spreadsheets for the CFO. So he decided I was an IT guy, which, I wasn't. But he
But you were young, so you just got the job.
Yeah. And so the CTO of the company handed me a database book and asked me to build a database to do a bunch of financial reporting. And I guess that's when I discovered I had a knack for it, because 3 weeks later they offered me a full-time job. And so I convinced them to buy me a computer and let me go back to college and work for them from my college apartment. So I was way ahead of this whole remote working thing way back in the 90s.
You were remote working before it was cool.
Yeah, way before it was cool. And my roommate hated me because I would sit there in my boxers and bill like ridiculous amounts of money for building databases while he trudged off to his job making minimum wage, as most college students did. But so I was living the dream, and it was great. And that's where I learned how to do databases. Little did I know it would become my entire career. But data has defined all 9 of the companies I've started. And I love data. I didn't know I did back then, but I love data and the power of data. And we're on a mission to help companies, fully own and control and use their data effectively.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting conversation, and I want to kind of get more into that a little bit. But I'd like to hear, so you said you've kind of started several companies. When you first started out, so you got that job doing this database stuff. What was it that you just, I mean, you've kind of felt your calling, you felt connected to being on a computer and the numbers, opposed to like mucking stalls and like milking cattle at 4 a.m?
Well, I don't know. I would love to say, yes, I knew it was my calling. I'm not sure that, I was in my 20s, young and stupid. And so I'm not sure I realized that at the time, but I just realized, I was making a lot of money doing it.
Yeah. And that's money and women are like 2 motivators when you're young, right?
Well, and especially in college. Yes. So, I was making a lot more money than anyone else I knew, and so that was really the driving force. After I graduated, was doing the same thing for more companies, and actually had a guy from one of my clients approach me about starting a company together. And I guess then it was kind of starting to sink in that, hey, maybe I do have a real knack for this, and this is my calling and my purpose. And that was the mid 90s, when then the dot com boom
Mm.
started,
Mm-hmm.
where anyone in their 20s, like me, who kind of understood this internet thing, could raise millions of dollars on an idea on a napkin. And so I did that very thing. My dad thought these investors were crazy for giving me millions of dollars, and they were. He was definitely right. But started a dot com company, and that's when I really started to realize, hey, I've got not only a knack for this thing, but a knack for leadership.
Hmm.
And just it was a great learning experience, starting that dot com company and learning how to raise capital and that whole world. So just did a lot of learning in my first several companies.
Yeah. So what was that napkin idea?
Uh, so we started a company that's now called Daxco, Daxko. But the
Okay.
idea originally was to build. Back then, websites were very static. There was not
No, you
such
had
thing as.
that a waving American flag gif, at the top
Yeah,
of the page.
yeah, that's
There's
it.
some movement in there.
That's about where they were, and they were definitely not portals. They were just information delivery mechanisms, like all of our marketing websites. And so we created a product for YMCA's,
Oh,
where when
nice.
you sign up your kids for T-ball or swim lessons or whatever, and you click the sign up button, instead of getting a PDF to print and bring in, you actually got a form to fill out and put in your credit card and pay.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we entered the $8 billion, I think it was at the time, YMCA sign up market. And that was our first product out of the gate there. And now Daxco, has a whole basically CRM for YMCA's and those sort of community driven organizations.
That's awesome. Are you still part of that at all in any way?
No, I'm not still part of Daxco. Sold out of that years ago.
Okay.
And that was a whole nother learning
Well,
experience.
yeah, that's what I'm curious about, right? Because it's like you're this young guy. It's like right place, right time, right skill set, right? It's like where your preparation met opportunity, and you kind of got
Mm,
to do this thing that
yeah.
a lot of people didn't get to do, and so then you get swept up in it, and then in the same way, it's like you have this thing that you're a part of that you're helping build and do all this stuff, and then what does that look like for you that first time, that you are thinking about exiting or selling? Was it simple? Did someone just say, hey, man, I'll give you a boatload of cash and you can bounce? Or was it like, hey, maybe we should think about moving on? Or the dynamics changed? Like, what was that?
No, it was none of those. I wish it was a good story. This is just a terrible but this is what you do in your 20s.
Right.
You
Yeah,
you
yeah. You
make you
learn.
make big mistakes and you learn from them. I was in my late 20s and I was arrogant and full of pride and thought I had it all figured out. And me and the board of directors of the company got cross, got cross at each other.
Yeah.
And I took my pride and said, buy me out. And I got pennies on the dollar for what I
Uh,
should have gotten because I was exiting way too early.
right.
And I thought this is so easy. I'll just do it again.
Yeah.
Little did I know, the dot com bubble had burst and was
Oh,
over. And
yeah.
it was like back to real world where, you actually had to have a business plan that made sense and all of those things. So, but again, great learning lesson. I figured out, humility is a very
Hmm.
important part of being a leader,
Yeah.
and so a lot of wonderful lessons there. But yeah, huge mistake, huge mistake.
Yeah. And again, I think that is important. And I kind of tell my kids, I have a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old.
Mm.
And
Whew.
my two boys who are older, 17 and 14, I kind of tell them, being in your 20s is your time to adventure, take big risks, make, mistakes, because the consequences of those mistakes in your 20 aren't as, big as when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s and stuff like that. And so
Yeah, it's
it's kind
true.
of like take that opportunity when you're young because, I look back on my life and in my 20s, like I did some dumb stuff and I pursued a lot of things that I was passionate about in music and different things like that. And I never look back on that time as like, oh, I wish I would have just went to college and did what everyone else did. It's kind of like, wow, I'm glad I had those life experiences and did those things. So,
You're right. It is a lot less costly. And thank goodness we learn from them. And as we get older, we're a lot more wise to
Yeah.
avoid those same mistakes. So
Is
yes, it
do you
was
have a
good.
family? Did you start a family when
I
you were in,
do.
in your 20s?
No, no, I have a very different family story as well. Um, I didn't get married for the first time until I was 50, just a few
Oh,
years ago.
wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're out there just, Club 70 discoing it up like, sowing your wild oats and
Well, you make it sound a lot more fun than reality, but yeah, I was single for a long time. My dad always told me you'll be happier single your whole life than you will be married to the wrong woman. I might have taken that advice a little too seriously,
you're
but
always
no,
waiting for the right one.
yeah, but I did. The Lord was good, and I
Yeah.
and I knew I had found her on my second date. I was like, oh
Okay.
boy, I'm in trouble, and so we were in our 50s. My wife has two adult children, and so
Okay.
when I proposed to her, I said, I'm so looking forward to spending the rest of my life with you. It's too bad that we'll never be able to have children together. And God said, did you just say never?
Uh-oh.
And yeah,
It's like
and
Sarah.
so yeah, and so last year,
No
through a
way.
a crazy circumstance of events, we ended up adopting
Okay.
our 2-year-old granddaughter. So I'm now dad. All of a
Hey.
sudden, yeah,
So
and
you're in the
I'm really not so worried about raising a child in my 50s, but I'm kind of terrified about raising a teenager in my 60s. But the Lord's
you
gonna have to give me some
ex-
supernatural energy.
he will, and you're gonna have lots of patience, and you're gonna be like, it's gonna keep you young and vibrant
Yes,
and stuff like that,
yes,
because you're gonna want to keep up with
right,
the kid, the baby,
yeah.
God works all things together for good for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And so,
That's it. And he has called me, and he needs to keep equipping me because here we go.
yeah, that's awesome.
She is
Okay.
full of energy and already keeping
Oh,
me much younger.
Oh, I know. I mean, I always tell my buddies who kind of waited to have kids, I was like, guys, like this is a young man's game.
This is
When you're under the crib at 2 a.m. looking for that pacifier, it's hard to
uh,
wake up the next day the older you get. I know for me, I had my first kid. My wife and I got married. We were super young. We had our first kid when I was like 27, and then we had our last kid when I was 35. And even that's just those years, 5, 6 years span was like, it was a difference, So I'll be praying for you, dude.
yeah, thank you. We're gonna need it, but she's amazing, and we're having a blast. And I've got a wife who's been through all this before, so man, that's
Oh,
also
that's a help.
huge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. All
massive,
that learning
massive.
curve.
She knows exactly what to do, and I'm just following along.
So then when you were younger, you were young, single, and you just kept kind of iterating businesses, learning from your mistake, have another idea, find some venture, get the idea rolling and kind of exit and stuff like that. So throughout all those experiences, I mean, what would you say looking back, some of the things that you maybe would have done different?
Yeah, definitely. I will not do venture capital anymore. I will not
Okay.
do equity anymore. I will not do partnerships anymore.
Yeah. I mean,
You know,
is that really because of one is when you do venture capital, it's like now that someone else is putting pressure on you to perform in a certain way, and they also kind of control you in some aspects. And then as far as the partnership goes, is it more of like, because I know for me, I decided earlier on that I didn't want to partner because I wanted to be able to move how I felt I needed to move, and I didn't want to have to ask permission or have a vote or anything like that.
yeah, I mean, if I had to choose between the two, partnerships are definitely just no, no, no. They're as what's
Because
his
you've
name,
had some bad
Ramsey.
partnerships in the past.
Yes, it's Ramsey says, they're the only ship that doesn't float. I just, I've never had a good experience being in
Yeah.
an equity partnership. They've all gone bad. They've all been nasty divorces.
Yeah.
Venture capital, is not as terrible. It's just they take a lot of equity, and you're working hard to build out your
Yeah.
vision and your dream, and it's your
Mm,
vision and your dream, and
right.
they take big pieces of it,
Yeah.
and so and just I'm in an older phase of life now and able to bootstrap it more. And so if you can bootstrap it, it is definitely the way to go. It's not
Yeah.
the way for everyone, especially not when you're younger. But if you can, it's your vision, it's your dream, it's your baby, and you're
Yeah.
going to be the one putting in the 100 hours a week on it. And
Right.
it's nice to just own 100% of that
Mm-hmm.
return, and be able to completely control the vision, control the branding, make all the decisions. I mean, of course, get good mentors, get a good board, get leaders around you that help you.
Yeah.
But when they don't have a piece of the pie, it's just it's just a lot more rewarding for the entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and I have some friends who, have raised some capital and are doing things to get going. But my one buddy, he kind of put a cap on it to say, all right, like I don't like I want to raise this much so I can kind of get things rocking and rolling, but then I'm done. I'm not going to do like A, B, C, and D, series raises and give more and more of my company away. Because like you said, at the end of the day, it's like it is something that you've built on your back. And I think back, I was in the music industry for all my 20s, and we signed a record deal, and it's like this idea that we funded that first record ourselves, and we like spent all this time and energy, and then we're out on the road touring and doing all this stuff, and it's like then the record company's like taking this massive chunk of that from you, and you're just like, man,
Yeah.
they're not really doing anything, except for collecting on these checks. And so yeah, I definitely can see how that can be tough for sure. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a time for it for sure.
yeah,
I
of
don't want to.
course.
Yeah, there's the right fit, and it depends on what your goals are too. I mean, maybe you are trying to exit the data group. My plan is to run the data group to the end of my life. So there's no short term strategy to exit or any of
Right.
that. So this is my long. I'm in the long game at this point. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about the data group and kind of what you saw as far as a whole in the industry and where kind of what inspired you to get that started and were you laying in bed thinking about stuff and saying, there's a need for this. Let me spin something up.
yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of companies over the years, and a lot of them involve full scale software design from back end to front end and everywhere in between. And I guess it was we really finally realized with the help of my team. I've had the same core team for about 15 years, which has
Oh,
been
that's
such a
awesome.
blessing. But we realized our niche is staying on the back end, staying on the data side of things. So
Mm.
I think we named the data group on purpose to just keep us from going and doing front end sort of, and just keep
Yeah.
us like, hey, what we do is data, and that's all we do. And when our clients say, hey, can you build this portal for us, we say, no, that's not what we do. But we can supply the API to the people who develop the portal to make it wonderful and amazing. So it just helps us stay in our lane. But that's our dream is and that's our vision and our focus is we help companies solve their data problems. We help companies own their data, discover their data, use their data. That's our mantra. We're in a crazy time where AI is, asking for more and more data,
Right.
and everybody is in this realization that data is the most valuable thing in the world. But at the same time, the irony is we're in this world where SaaS platforms are proliferating, and everybody's subscribing to all these SaaS platforms to run their businesses. So at the same time that we want to own our data and control our data and use our data for AI,
Hmm.
we're scattering our data out there amongst all these cloud SaaS platforms. So it's like, well, I want to own my data, control my data, but my data is scattered in amongst 30 different SaaS platforms. And so that's the challenge that we're trying to help companies solve and help CEOs and leaders understand is, hey, your data is your most valuable asset in your
Right.
company. And are you investing in it like it's your most valuable asset? And
Mm.
that question really resonates. And then it's like, all right, well, what do we need to do here? We've got to get all of this data that's scattered around the globe, and we've got to get it into a single one version of the truth data warehouse for you that you can actually use effectively. And so that's really our mission. It usually starts with us just helping them solve some data integration problems, and then it just kind of grows and matures from there, where we kind of become their data team.
Nice. And so is that really essentially because you're saying you have all these platforms that these companies are using that all their data is kind of going into, and so as far as like how you really help somebody, is it helping them kind of instead of using some other third party service or SaaS company, developing that in house and storing all that data kind of locally or in the cloud, and then partnering with them or trying to help them find like a front end system? Like give me an example. Is it like a CRM, or is it,
Yeah.
marketing data, or is it,
Yeah, it's all
what
the
is
above.
that?
It's all the above. I mean, we want to encourage the companies. You want to buy the systems and subscribe to the SaaS platforms that make sense for you and that are in your budget and have the feature set that you want. So we don't want to restrict what you need to do from a system perspective. What we want to do is make sure that those platforms and systems don't own your data, so
Right.
that your data is not locked in these different silos. We want to free your data, collect your data, extract your data from all these platforms, bring it back, and put it in a one version of the truth data warehouse. We partner with Snowflake. We love Snowflake. We use Snowflake for all of our customers. So we set you up with a Snowflake data warehouse where you finally fully own and control all of your data. So our platforms are designed to extract all your data from both your on-premise systems, your cloud-based systems,
Nice.
get it all into your Snowflake data warehouse that you fully own and control. Then we go through a discovery process where we enrich your data, clean your data, fix your data, make it usable. Then we put an API over it, and now it's like, okay, now all the possibilities of the world are available. Do you want to build apps? Do you want to build portals? Do you want to build analytics? Do you want to build alerts? What is it that will help your business move forward? And now that we have all the data, we own it and control it, and we have an API. It's like, hey, let's go. What do we want to do? What's the What AI initiatives do we now want to take advantage of? Because now we finally have the foundation.
Mm,
We have our data.
right. So, I mean, part of this, I think, is almost like an education thing too, where you want to like try to educate people about.
Yes.
It's almost like, I think, as far as like an American goes, here in the States, it's like this idea of like sovereignty, and that you are uh, our rights don't come from the governments, that they're endowed to us by a creator, and that we are in control of ourselves, and then we give a little bit of access to the government in order to do certain tasks on our behalf. Now, nowadays, a lot of that has flown by the wayside, and people have forgotten some of that stuff. But what you're saying kind of resonates in that way for me, as far as like, if you own all of your information and data, then you have more control and more say about how it gets used and what gets shared, and then also too, not allowing someone else to monetize your information at no fee, at no cost to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's really what the first part about, you've got to own your data. It's your most valuable asset. I like to use the analogy. I heard it years ago, and it just really struck me is that you are, as a person, as an individual, you are the sum total of your thoughts to this point in your life. You can be nothing else. So every input that you've had, every movie, every book you've read, all of those thoughts you've collected now make up who you are. And I use that same analogy to say, every financial transaction in your business has been recorded in a system. Every customer relationship, all of the data of your company is your company, and it
Yeah.
is the complete unbiased truth about your company,
Yeah.
and it's scattered everywhere, and you have no control over it. You have no insight into it, and so that's the problem. Is who you are as a company is your data, and you don't own it, and you don't have control. It's scattered. So you've got to say, hey, this is crazy. This is madness. Our most valuable asset is that, what other really valuable assets do you not fully own and control in your business? I hope none. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like we own our buildings, we own our manufacturing, we own, we pay our people and they work directly for us, and we own
Right.
kind of their time and what they do. But your data, you just leave it scattered out there, and all these other companies own it. And it's a really
Mm.
bad and scary place to be. And it's
Yeah.
something that you've got to invest in to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways it's one of those things where people just feel it's so complex, and it's like intimidating to even think about, like you were just saying,
Yes.
like all these little transactions. Um, and so, like, how do you help leaders kind of simplify their approach to their data? Like when first of all, how does someone come to you and think like, oh, I need your services or need your help, and then from there, it's like, how long does this process usually take? I mean, it seems kind of overwhelming in some ways. And then as a leader, it's like you're all stretched thin and you don't have enough time as it is. And now it's like, oh, now I got to think about this.
Yes. So several points. Back to the education and making leaders understand, and that's one of the biggest things I talk about. Is look, data is incredibly simple. It's strings, dates, and numbers. That's all it is. There's strings. Those are the labels. Those are the descriptions. Those are the names. There's dates, when it happened, when it started, when it ended, and there's numbers. You know, how much money did you make? How much money did you lose? How much did it cost? That's it. That's all there is to data: strings, dates, and
Huh.
numbers. And once they kind of understand that, it's like, oh, okay, this isn't that hard. I do understand this. And they believe this lie from IT and tech heads and data heads who try to talk about data governance, mesh
Yeah, it's the
fabrics, and all this
insecurity that their
language.
job's going to go away, so they have to
Uh,
make it sound too hard to
yeah,
make you feel insecure, and you got to keep them on payroll.
yes. So they make it way more complicated than it actually is. And what I tell leaders is, look, do you understand everything about manufacturing? No, but do you lead your manufacturing?
Mm,
Yes. And IT and technology and data is no different.
mm.
You ask enough questions to understand it enough, and then you make decisions and you lead it. And there's so many CEOs who you ask them, they're like, oh, I don't understand any of that stuff. That's why I have this team over there. It's like, really? This is your company's most valuable asset and you're outsourcing the leadership of it? No. You can lead this. It's simple. It's strings, dates, and numbers, and you need to lead it because it's the future. And so, yeah, that's our whole message: is you have to take ownership and leadership over this because it is your most valuable asset, and data is the future of business.
Yeah,
So we need to, as leaders, we need to feel confident that it is simple. We need to quit believing this lie that is complicated, and we need to quit believing this lie that we can't lead it. It's like anything else. You set the mission, you set the vision, and you lead it. And the mission and the vision is we are going to own and control our data and use it effectively. And then you lead on that mission, and you don't get distracted. You just stay focused on it like you do all your other BHAGs that you set as a leader. You set the BHAG, you set the vision, and you lead it.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's really good advice, and it makes total sense to me. It seems like things have changed a lot, right? Kind of. You correct me if I'm wrong because I wasn't around back then, but it seemed like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? Data was all stored in a warehouse by big machines, right? And then even into the 90s and early 2000s, you had like server rooms and people had a lot of their stuff in house. And then you had kind of the cloud coming online and people started moving virtual machines and virtual servers and VMware Fusion and all this other kind of stuff like and then I think too probably one of the biggest ones I can think of is kind of like Google, right? They tell you like, hey, we'll give you email for free and we'll give you some storage online for free, but really they're taking our data, right? Everything that we're doing, so really it's not free, and then they're profiting billions and trillions of dollars off of us as our identities and the things that we talk about and the things that we're searching for and all that kind of stuff. So like what was that shift? Was it the slow enticing of us giving, or do we become a slave to convenience and give up those rights to our data?
Yeah, I mean, SaaS systems are not going anywhere. They're
Right.
continuing to proliferate, and they're wonderful. They make life so easy. You create a subscription, you log in, and the system functions. You don't have to manage it or host it, and all the expenses that go along with that. So again, SaaS is great. I don't want to discourage. Well, I mean, you're not going to stop it, and it's
Right.
wonderful. It's affordable. It makes software and systems and platforms very affordable. So SaaS is just going to continue. We still see lots of big enterprises using mainframes and lots of old technology as well. So that's still out there, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But definitely, the future is going to continue going to the cloud and continue to go into SaaS platforms. So there's no stopping that, and there's also no stopping this AI. It's not going away,
Yeah, the
and you're
genie's
going to
out of the
get left
bottle.
behind if you don't take
Yeah.
advantage of it and use it. But data is at the core of all of this, right? AI runs on data, just like our brains run on data. Portals and systems, and every business initiative of the future is going to run on data. And so that's why I just feel like as the data group, we're very well positioned to help companies, fully own and control and use their data effectively. Because, like I said, it's the future of everything.
Yeah. So you were working on a book, right? becoming more data driven. Is that right?
Data
Did you fin?
driven leader. Yeah, it's
Yeah. So
every
are
yeah.
you done with that book? Is it out?
It is not out. It's coming out this fall. We're in the the publisher is editing it. We're going through that process of getting it from a draft into a final form and getting it published this fall. So yeah, it's called Data Driven Leader, and it's a lot of the things I just talked about,
Yeah.
like helping CEOs understand this is not complicated. Quit believing this lie that you don't understand this stuff and that you can't lead this stuff, because you can. You lead it like you lead every other department in your business.
Hmm.
You set the vision and you lead it, and that's what the book's all about: is how to transform your company into a data-driven business, and in the process transform yourself into a data-driven leader, because you can't be a data-driven leader unless you're running a data-driven business, right?
Right.
So it's a process. You transform your company into a data-driven business, and it makes you into a data-driven leader, and positions both you and your leadership and your business for the future by really by replacing this lie that you can't lead this with the truth that it is very simple and you can lead it, and then owning and controlling all your data so you can use it effectively for all the things that are coming in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, what do you see as far as the future goes? I mean, because what blows my mind is thinking about even just ChatGTP, right? I remember maybe it was like a year ago, November, that it kind of came onto the scene, and it kind of just came on. Everyone's talking about it. It's on the news. It's in the social feeds, and then it kind of went away. But then now it's like everything that you see is like, oh, it uses large language models and it has AI. Like now everything, it's like almost like the foundation of everything that's out there is now AI driven. And that was like in a year and a half, that kind of happened. And so it's wild to think like, okay, what do you see as the next like phase of that?
Yeah, I don't think anybody really knows, right? It's moving fast, and we really don't know what it holds. I think I don't know if you're old enough to remember Ronald Reagan, but he famously said, a recession is when your neighbor loses their job, and a depression is when you lose your job.
Mm,
And that's the scary thing. I think everybody thinks, oh, AI is so cool. It's replacing all these jobs. Well, yeah, that's real cool until it's your job.
yeah.
Then it's not. Then it's not cool at all. And I
Right.
think coders and technology people felt like they were safe because, oh, well, we're the ones, but we're
Yeah.
actually figuring out that one of the biggest uses for AI is writing code. So,
Yeah.
nobody really knows where this is headed, and that's what's scary about it. I definitely question the wisdom of replacing jobs. I love the AI that helps us with our jobs,
Yeah.
helps us be more efficient, helps us be more productive. But actually, replacing jobs, in my humble opinion, is a really bad idea. God created us to have a purpose and a
Yeah.
calling and a
To
job,
work.
and a
Mm-hmm.
paycheck is part of all of what gives us worth and value as humans. And so, we're not designed to sit on a beach and do nothing. So
Right.
we need to have jobs. So I hate this idea that we're going to replace jobs with it, but I love it helping jobs, helping us do our jobs better, helping us be more productive. So I'm hoping that it goes more in that area,
Yeah.
but I understand, like replacing people with robots that work 24/7 and don't need
Yeah.
a break and don't form unions and don't, demand vacations and healthcare. And
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. So it's not going anywhere, and it's going to continue to move forward. And all we can do is try to leverage it for our businesses in the best way we can.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely it feels like we're living in the beginning of, that dystopian future movie where it's like in 2023 AI came online, and then it's going to be fast forward to Terminator 2, and everyone's
Yeah.
just taken over by the robots. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things continue to pan out and where it goes from here. So as I want to talk to you a little bit about just being a leader. You have has your company been around for 15 years? Is that what you said?
Yeah, me and my team, we've been through different corporate structures over those
Okay.
15 years. But yeah, me and my core team and the team that is the data group have been together for 17 years now.
Okay.
And we've
Nice. Okay. So
been doing data stuff all the while. So,
yeah, and are you guys fully remote, or do you have like an office space, or like what does that
yeah,
look
no,
like?
we are fully virtual. Yeah,
Nice.
scattered all across the globe, which is actually really strategic and helpful because, we have a lot of data movement that we do for our customers at night. So
Hmm.
when things break, it's really great that we have people that are wide awake in the middle of their day while the
Right.
USA is sleeping to fix stuff for our customers.
Yeah.
And they wake up and they're blissfully unaware that there was any
Yeah.
problems that occurred
That
overnight.
you were melting down at 2 in the morning, calling
Right.
people like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, yeah. So it's great having people all over the world helping us in different time zones. So it's kind of a real it's a strategic advantage in doing
Yeah.
what we do, where data's got to be moved and in the right places at the right time by sun up in the USA.
Right. And so having a fully remote team, how do you like lead effectively? I mean, so it sounds like too, like when COVID hit, you guys were probably already meeting via Zoom, and it didn't really disrupt your patterns too much as far as work goes, because it's not like you had to like drive into an office space or
Yeah.
have your place of business shut down because you can't service in-person customers. So how have you tried to be an effective leader leading people remotely, and how do you build camaraderie and teamwork and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think it's changed. I mean, the secrets of leadership have been around for thousands of years. There's really
Yeah.
nothing new in the leadership game. You have to care about your people. You have to love your people and treat them accordingly. And as long as you do, it doesn't matter if you're meeting virtually or in person. We spend a lot of time in our meetings, just being in our team meetings, just talking about family, talking about relationships, talking about what's going on in our lives, making sure that we're really in tune as a team with each other personally, and we've got each other's backs, and we understand where each other are. I mean, one of my main data guys and programmers right now is walking through. His dad has cancer, terminal
Mm.
cancer. So, just knowing what's going on in your people's lives and caring and praying with them and just telling them you love them and you're with them. Those are the things that make it work. If your people don't feel like they care about you, if you care about them, then leadership doesn't work. But the more they
Yeah.
know that you care about them personally and what's going on in their lives,
Mm.
that's what makes leadership work.
Yeah, and I think that's actually real profound and real simple, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah,
It sounds like you're a man of faith, and so in the Bible, there's like the rich young ruler that came to Jesus and was like, "Hey, what do I have to do?" And he's like, "Hey, love God and love the widow, right, and the orphan." And he's like, "Yo, well, I've done all that, like." And he's like, "We'll sell your stuff." But it's interesting how Jesus said that all the commandments can be summed up in those two things: is to like love God and love others, right? And
yeah,
so it's funny that there's so much leadership education and 12 points and 7 habits and all these complex strategies to lead, and then you just said, yeah, just know about your people and love them well.
yeah. Loving
And I
people
think that
well.
solves everything else, right? I mean, that there's so many, like, if you're doing that, you're solving a lot of those other problems.
Yeah, I mean, love conquers all, right? And I am a man of faith, and it's a pyramid of relationships. If your relationship with your Creator and your Lord and God is not good, your marriage is not going to be good. And then if your relationship with your Lord and Savior is good, and your relationship with your wife is good, that makes it a lot easier to have good relationships in business. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to have the right foundation and the right structure, and everything builds off of that. So, you just
Yeah.
got to keep those things. Uh, John Maxwell is my favorite leadership guru, and what he says: success is that the people who know me the best love and respect me the
Mm.
most. And so there you go. The
Yeah.
people who matter are my wife and my family, and then my team. And as
Yeah.
long as you are loving those people well, everything else gets, like you said, a lot more simple after that.
Yeah. Now, did you always like kind of were you always a Christian, or like was that something that came on later in life, or like at what point did you kind of have that shift in your life? And then I guess another question on top of that would be is, have you ever brought that into business, or does that affect how you hire people or the kind of culture you build?
All yes, all the above. No, I was I gave my life to Jesus, in the sixth grade, but I was a really bad Christian all through my 20s and 30s. It was my mid 40s when I really started to figure it out, and then I had to go all in with this faith thing and give my whole life to Jesus. And I was that typical, uh, you know, kind of half in
Yeah.
sort of Christian for those years, and it changed everything when I went all in.
Mm,
And it's yes, it's part of the core values of our company, and relationships is our first core value. Our God is a God of relationships,
mm.
and He works through relationships and relationships in every area with our team, with our families, with our customers, with our vendors and partners. That's what we put first. And so that first core value is just kind of the foundation of everything that we do, um, and that's why uh, I don't like partnerships, right? So, um, it just muddies the water when you
Right.
get that in. And so, having those core values and living out those core values and being the leader of those core values is wonderful. And I love my team. It was awkward at first. A few years ago, I actually started telling them that I love them, and I don't know why that was awkward at first, but
Yeah.
it became natural pretty quickly. And I tell them I love them all the time because I do love them, and I don't know why in
Yeah.
business we're like afraid to say that. But we love our customers, we love our vendors and partners, we love our families, we love our team, and like you said earlier, that makes everything a lot more simple.
Yeah, totally. What did you notice a difference as far as like when you decided to kind of go all in on your faith, did you notice a difference as far as like your business goes, or like whether like you had more peace around stressful situations, or kind of like what was the difference, or was there a catalyst that drove you to that? I mean,
Oh,
you don't even have to answer this, if it's too personal or whatever. But
oh,
it always
no,
curious. I'm always curious about those kind of things because I try to be outspoken about my faith, and we're not really a Christian company, but we're Christians in a company, and I'm not always like talking about this kind of stuff, even on this podcast. We don't really talk about it much, but for me, like if someone's not afraid to talk about stuff, I'm always willing to ask the question. So.
yeah, no. I mean, it's a great question. I think the what you would think is the right answer is yeah, I went all in with Jesus, and then everything just got gravy after that, right? To use the pun on my name, but the opposite happens because what happens is you're now in battle with the enemy, and
Right.
he comes after you, and so
Right.
instead of things getting smoother, things get a lot rougher because
Um.
the enemy is now coming after you and your business and your family and your team and
Yeah.
everything. And so it doesn't get easier. In fact, it gets a lot harder. But then, yes, in the midst of all that, somehow you also get this supernatural peace that surpasses all understanding that
Right.
comes along with your faith. That he's in control and he's got you. And whoa, that's where it gets tough. But that's true faith is you have to know. And the good thing is, it's like I kind of now look at it as like, okay, this bad stuff is happening, which is a good thing because it means we must be taking
Mm.
ground and the enemy is coming after us. So you try to flip it and turn it into a positive
Right.
that we must be doing the right things
Yeah.
because now the enemy and all hell is coming against us and at us. So uh, it's not fun, but
Yeah.
the Lord never promised us that it would be easy. In fact, He promised the opposite. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure there's an element of as kind of going all in your faith later on in life, there's probably some things that you like want to weed out, or like now there's moral decisions where before it might have been like a gray area, but now you're like, all right, no, like we're not going to do that, or I'm not going to participate in that, and then that makes it difficult too.
well, that part makes it a lot easier because decisions become a lot more clear. You know
Yeah.
what the right thing is to do, and you're going to do it. And so decisions actually get a lot more clear and a lot easier to make when you have a much more moral compass and it's
Yeah.
grounded in your core values and your core beliefs. Decisions become really easy.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So, Well, listen, I really enjoyed our conversation, and
Yeah,
thanks for
likewise.
for coming on here and just kind of sharing your life and your experiences and kind of inspiring people to take charge of their data and
Yeah.
not give it away for free.
Yeah, your data is your most valuable asset. Own it and control it and use it effectively. And that's our mission, and our core value is relationship and data. We're weird like that. We love relationships, we love people, and we love data. It's such a weird combination, but we have a lot of fun with it. That's another one of our core values is just having fun at work. And so we love working with data. We love working with our customers, and we love helping people demystify this thing they think is so complicated, which is data, because it is actually incredibly simple and it's incredibly powerful when you use it effectively.
Yeah. What if people wanted to connect with you or find out, more about how to manage their data better or engage with you? What's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and then, of course, just our website, thedatagroup.cloud. Thedatagroup.cloud.
Okay, awesome. And then, we always like to leave people with just one tip starting next week, beginning of the week. What's one of the things that they can do, like a small step, I think in this conversation towards maybe moving their data in the right direction or taking an
Okay.
action item for next week?
Yeah, straight from the book. Here's my first data-driven leader becoming a data-driven leader hack, right? So if you read James Clear's Atomic Habits book, he talks about, the hardest part is starting. So you got to
Yeah.
start somewhere, something small, something so
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
And so here's the tip is if you were to count how often in a day as you go into business meetings, how often you and your team say, I think. And what I think says is, I don't have any data to back this up. And so here's my assumption. And so what we want to do is have that I think become a trigger and change I think to do we have any data?
Yeah.
And so if you start that with your team and you start doing it personally and then with your team, instead of saying, I think, replace it with, hey, do we have any data? And that is the first hack towards putting yourself and your team on the path to becoming data driven.
Nice. I love it. All right. Well, hey, thanks for being on the show. And hey, thanks for listening to The Friday Habit. If you go to thefridayhabit.com, you can find show notes for this episode. You can also find ways to get in touch. And you can also download our guide to the Friday Habit system that's going to help you spend more time working on your business instead of always in your business. You can also shoot us an email at hello@thefridayhabit.com. Maybe even leave us a voice memo. We always love hearing from you guys. And until next time, remember, live every day like it's Friday.